Welcome back to another episode of the Know Your Power podcast. I am your host, Julia Renee.
I am Kendall Graboff.
And today, guys, we have special guest, Liv Wickedly.
What's
in the
up?
House.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
You're our first guest on the podcast,
Yes,
right?
I'm taking your guest virginity.
We had
Yes.
Erica, but we went to her. This is our first person in home.
In studio.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you guys for the honor.
Yes, I'm excited. Well, today, guys, we're going to be talking about the victim mindset. And it's funny because we were talking about the title before this episode with Liv, and we were going to title it Breaking Free from the Victim Mindset. So I wanted you to kind of talk about your thoughts behind changing the title and why you thought it would be a good idea.
Yeah, so breaking free from the victim mindset is actually coming from a victim place.
Yeah.
It's this idea that you're trapped, right? And that you need to break free from something. But the truth is, you're just making a choice. And it's a choice that might be producing something in your life that you don't particularly enjoy, but you're not trapped by it. You just need to make a different choice.
That's a really good point. I wouldn't even think about that. Yeah.
I mean, that's just proof like how words and what we say is so powerful. Mm-hmm. And I never thought of it that way. I'm just like, yay, breaking free. I think of like from High School Musical, that song.
Yeah.
We're breaking free. I'm soaring.
I was going to be your backup vocals, but I'm such a bad singer that people would tune out immediately.
I thought it would be beautiful. You should try it. You should try it.
Maybe not. Not today.
Yeah. But before we get into all of that good juju, I just wanted Liv to tell us a little bit about yourself, because I know you, Kendall knows you, but we want the world to know you a little bit more. So where did you start and where are you now?
All right. Well, I started a long time ago as an embryo in my mother's uterus.
Oh, wow.
This was about 31 years ago.
So new.
Yeah. No, where did I start? Okay, so I'll just kind of start with my what I subscribe to as my job titles. I'm a conscious love communication and relationship coach, and what that means is I basically get people to shift out of their victim mindset into a creator's mindset so that they can become the powerful creator of their life. The joke being they already are. They're just creating unconsciously. Mm-hmm. And they're creating in a way that's producing a lot of unnecessary suffering. Well, I don't want to say it's unnecessary. We need suffering to learn. Pain is a very important teacher. And at the same time, how many times do you need to learn the same damn lesson before you make a choice? Hey, you've been through this merry-go-round before. Do you want to do something about that or just stay on it?
No, I like to stay here because pain is so comfortable.
Well, exactly. Some of us build identity around it. We build meaning around it. We decide that this is the way life is, and we don't see possibility. We completely shut the door on any other possibility. Yeah.
This is how it has to be.
Yeah. So I came to this place going through my own journey of victim mindset, and I was so deeply in it. I was so attached to it. I just was constantly living in a life where the circumstances were more powerful than me. Mm-hmm. And the way life was going was happening to me, not for me. And the more that I started to look at what hurt and how to break free from it and how to heal, the more I started to realize, am I the cause of all my problems?
Am I the drama?
I think I'm the drama.
I think I'm the drama.
I love that
So
sound.
far, that's been the conclusion every single time.
Yes.
And I started to get to this place when I would like alchemize things and move through these low vibrational frequencies like shame and guilt. And I would get to the other side of them. I would just die laughing because I'm like, oh my God, I'm the fucking punchline. Every time I go through this maze and I get all confused and the complexities of my mind make me think it's some big thing outside of myself. And every single time when I actually get to the end, oh, I'm the idiot. Fuck.
I feel like I can relate to that so much. Like every time you get out of like a depression or an anxiety episode or whatever it is, I feel like I always look back and I'm like, that could have all been fixed with like this simple, like waking up and just being like, today's going to be a good day could have fixed like all of that. I was like putting myself in this own little box and being like, I'm stuck here and everything sucks and my life sucks. And it's like, if you just like look a little externally and you're like, no, you're deciding that this all sucks. Like, I don't know. It's such an easy fix, but it feels like so much more, I don't know, out of body, I guess.
Yeah. Well, what I like to tell people is it's really simple. It's not easy, but it's really simple.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I start to catch, like when I'm complicating it, I'm like, oh, this is me.
Yes.
This situation is what the situation is, and I'm choosing to experience it through fear instead of experiencing it through love. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of been a really important thing that I've distinguished is I can have an experience of anger. I'm allowed to have that. That's so reasonable. It's a very normal human emotion. It's an important human emotion. Do I want to experience my anger through fear and isolation and loneliness? Or do I want to experience it through love and gratitude and joy? So far, the love, gratitude, joy is a much more enjoyable experience, and it usually produces a result that feels better for me. And this goes for any emotion you experience, even loneliness. If you greet your loneliness with love versus fear, what does that do for you? You know, what can you create from that? What possibilities does that open? And I think of fear through the sense of shadow. And I like to think of shadow in a very particular way. Literally, if you're outside, the sun's out, there's no clouds, and you see your shadow, it's a very small portion of the outside, right? Mm-hmm. That's true in life too, but we stare at our shadow and that's all we see. Mm-hmm. And like Kendall was saying, if you just look a little to the left or a little to the right, you see there's light there. Mm-hmm. We focus on our shadow. There's actually a really beautiful meme. There's like this guy with his face like surrounded by water, and he's got this like terrible grimace on his face, and he's like, "Oh, I'm drowning." And then the next panel zooms out, and he's in like 2 feet of water.
He's in a kiddie pool.
That's literally so accurate.
Yeah, and then you're like, "Hey, man, if you just sit up, like, you're not drowning.
Yeah.
You're choosing to drown. You're not actually drowning. That doesn't have to happen unless you're choosing it to happen." And so this is pretty much what I coach people through.
So how long do you think it took you to move from the realization that this was all happening to me, you know, you're just a victim of your circumstances, into, oh my God, I was choosing this whole time and I could have not been?
Yeah, that's an interesting question to ask, because we could go from the point I was born up until, you know, the point I was 27. We'll say it took 27 years. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, and I would say maybe 28 is more when I really woke up to this. If we look at the amount of time I like kind of had my first consciousness wake up, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing, man?
What happened?
What is this? Why am I living like this? Do I need to live like this? That probably started when I was 21 or 22, and that comes off the back of me working and doing coaching in a corporate environment. Mm-hmm. I was working for my mom. We did a lot of conflict resolution on teams, a lot of communication coaching, and we basically would end up with these teams who are super dysfunctional. And it's like these grown adults who are like a decade to 3 decades older than me, and I'm coaching them, mm-hmm. and I'm watching them act like children. Like, mm-hmm. I literally just started to see from this perspective, this is a toddler in a 50-year-old's body. Mm-hmm. They're throwing a tantrum. Why is a 50-year-old throwing a tantrum? Why is she acting like she's a slave to her job? She can quit. She can find a new job. She can talk to her boss about this. There's so many things she can do, and she's just choosing to sit here and suffer. And then she's enlisting her coworkers in the suffering, and she's creating misery all around her. Mm-hmm. I don't like that. I don't like that for me. I don't like that for her. I don't like that for the rest of the fucking world. What is this? Mm-hmm. So probably took me from the point of seeing that and starting to wake up to actually understanding it in my body and being able to alchemize about 7 or 8 years. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it needs to take that long. I think just with where I was, the access I had to resources and the level of consciousness around me wasn't high enough for me to get there sooner. Mm-hmm. Now that I'm around a lot of conscious people, I move through things in like 4 to 8 hours once I discover them. I'm like, I don't like that. What is that? 48 hours later, okay, I'm making a new choice. I'm done with that movie.
Instead of like 7 years later.
Yeah. Right. Yes.
Do you think that who you surround yourself with has a big impact on how quick you move through things?
Oh my God, yes. I think they even did some science on this. There's some case studies that says you become the 5 people you spend mm-hmm. the most time with. Mm-hmm. And I literally tell people relationships are mirrors. So when you're looking at your friend, you're looking at a version of yourself, right? Like, and when we think of this from the lens of unity consciousness, which unity consciousness says we're all one, right? What I do is what you do is what we all do. We are one. So when you think of it in that sense, if you're staring at someone and you're only experiencing low vibration from them, it's because that exists in you. You see it in yourself. You mm-hmm. feel it in yourself. You know it in yourself. And so we get into this game where like their shadow will trigger your shadow, will trigger their shadow, will trigger your shadow. And you end up in this like
100%.
Infinite loop until one of you wakes up and breaks that cycle.
Yes. And this can happen with friends, with relationships. That's when you kind of get out of either a friendship or relationship or even like family, and you get out from it. You move past and you're like, wow, that wasn't me.
No,
yeah. I was just vibing off their vibe. It's like, for me, it was like maybe friend groups, I would say, friend groups, to where like I was working in a salon. I was in that environment where everyone was just a victim of their experience. And so was I. 100%. And then when I moved past that and I went into health and fitness and I surrounded myself with new people that were taking accountability for their body, for their life, I was like, oh, shit. I was just so negative for such a long time. And I thought that, this is just how it has to be. This is great.
Yeah, exactly. And it's difficult to break free from those things when it's all you see around you. You don't see other possibilities. And so this is what where I get into people. A lot of people have some kind of abandonment wound somewhere, like some kind of feeling of like, oh, I'm going to be alone. And so they hold on to what they know for this fear of being alone.
Yes.
But when you hold on to and you attach to things that way, you close the door on other possibilities. And so what I try to remind people is you have to be willing to lose everything you have to get everything you ever wanted. What if the things you're holding on to and the things you think make you feel not alone are the exact things that make you feel alone? Because you do feel fucking alone right now. You already feel it. You're already in it. Mm-hmm. You've already created the reality of feeling alone. And you're so terrified of feeling what you already feel, you're staying in it. Mm-hmm. You're victimizing yourself to it. So my friend group who I spend time with is completely different than it was 3 years ago.
100%.
And it's for the better.
Yeah.
And every single relationship that I've let go of that was no longer serving me has created more space for more possibility and for a beautiful human who's a much more aligned reflection of me to step in and take that space. And that's way better in just so many ways.
Yeah. And I'm sure like at the time too, because I know you were previously married as well, and you had a different group of friends. At some point you didn't live here in Austin, and everything was completely different from you. Like I've seen you transform. I mean, when I met you, you were just getting a divorce. Mm-hmm. So I bet in that time when you were with those people and those circumstances and that job, did you feel like I can't let this go?
Oh, yeah. Abandonment is like a deep.
You're like, I hate
cut.
being here, but I can't let you go at the same time. Whether it was a job, it was a relationship, it doesn't matter. You just feel like you can't let it go for some reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes is your comfort zone will kill you, because I think like we don't realize when you're so comfortable in a situation, say it is your friend group and you're like, this is comfortable. I know these people, they know me, and we do the same thing every week. And a lot of the times those like negative things like, oh, I don't like partying, but my friend group goes and parties and they drink or they do drugs or whatever. But they're my friends, so I go with them, and then I let that influence me, but I don't want to be here. And it's so hard to be like, I'm going to walk away from all of that and all of that comfortability just to find people more aligned with what I actually want and want to do. And I feel like that took me forever. And instead of walking away from situations, I wouldn't let anyone in at all. So I just my comfort zone was myself. I was so afraid of like, well, I don't want to meet the wrong people and fall down this wrong path. So instead I'll just like, I've always been like a lone wolf. And until I met I think Julia was my first like real friend, where I was like, oh, and me and this girl have the same things in common and we push each other and I'm very motivated by her. And I hope I'm also doing that to you.
100%.
And it took forever. And then even then I was so scared of like actually hanging out with her. So it's crazy that like we get stuck in these comfort zones and they just become like the house we live in.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Yeah. You hit the nail on the head with that. And you're literally commenting on the victim mindset, right? Like you had this idea that these other people were more powerful than you, and that they could get you to do something that was against your values and your values and integrity, when you're the person who makes that choice, right? You choose to follow them when you don't want to, right?
Yeah.
And I think you were starting to realize that you don't trust yourself, and that's why you weren't letting yourself have friends.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But then you see this other woman who's actually providing a vibrational reflection to you that actually feels good and empowering. Okay, maybe I'll step outside of my comfort zone and see what this is. Mm-hmm. And what we're always scared of is our own power. This is why we get scared of people who are in their power, and this is why they get so judged. This is why we like to throw judgment at people who have things that we wish we could produce for ourselves, right? Because we're seeing them as, we like to write successful people off as like lucky or blessed or special in some way. Uh-huh. And we devalue the humanity that they must have gone through to get where they are.
Yeah. I mean, if we're even just relating it to fitness too, I remember when I first started, I would look at girls who were where I wanted to be, where I am, I guess, right now. And I'd be like, oh man, she probably has the best genetics. Oh my God, she probably can eat whatever she wants. So she probably doesn't have to work this job, just devaluing everything that it took for them to get there without actually knowing who they were. Because in some way, doing that to them made me feel better about not being there yet, or that it was going to take me a long time. And I think about them like, wow, I mean, I know that there's a lot of people that are doing that when it's just, no, take control of your life because you have it, which is what we've been talking about. And you can get to where she's at. And it's not going to look exactly where she's at because you're different.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
I feel like similar with like the whole fitness thing is like so many people look at the top of the top and they're like steroids. That's how they got there. And it's like that's discrediting all the work and suffering and everything they went through to get there just because you feel like that's the one thing keeping you from being there. And it's like, no, if you just worked harder or if you just applied yourself as much as those people are applying themselves, like I always view the people around me as motivation and I'm just not a jealous person in general, but I feel like people who are will look at someone ahead of them and be like, oh, I want to tear them down. I want them to be where I am instead of being like, I want to get to where they are. I feel like that like little switch of viewpoint can change a lot.
Yeah, you can use people as motivation in a good way or a very negative way. You can use it to help you rise up, or you can use it to like push them down or put yourself back down. But
yeah, well,
icky.
You guys are talking about something very important when we talk about the victim mindset. So the victim mindset, just to make it simple for people, Eckhart Tolle has a really simple way of putting this, and he says the victim mindset is simply the belief that the past is more powerful than the present, right? So something happened to you in your past. It created a fear. That fear created a belief. And now all your behaviors mirror this belief you have. And most of us have a belief somewhere in us that we're broken in some way, right? We're unworthy. We're not enough. We're too much. We're unlovable. We don't belong. Whatever our story is, whatever that belief is, right? And now all of our behavior and our thoughts come from that place. So when you're in this present moment and you're scrolling through Instagram and you see these beautiful people, right? You have a choice in the present moment to either view that through a lens of jealousy and envy, right? And those things put you in a victim mindset. They put you in this space of, I can't have that, right? And then instead of listening to the narrative in our own mind, telling us, casting these spells like, oh, you'll never have that. So for example, when you and I met, I was on the south side of 200 because I had 200 pounds. So because I had started to take better care of myself, but at my worst, I was almost 200 pounds, right? And when you and I met, I was probably like 175, right? So I still had about 25 extra pounds on me that were very uncomfortable. And I used to tell myself this story of like the genetics thing. I used to tell myself that story. I used to tell myself, well, I'll never be a girl who can just eat what she wants and also look that way. And I'd rather eat what I want, right? Like I used to just tell myself these stories and cast these spells, like closing doors of possibility that I could have that and this. It was an or situation. And in the present moment, I had a choice to look at those women in admiration, which is inspiring and motivating. And, oh, if she can do that, I can do that. This is just a normal woman just like me. She came out of a womb just the way I did. She didn't have anything I didn't have.
Yeah.
Or I can look at her as an excuse to stay in my limiting stories. But that only can happen in the present. You can only create in the present. The future doesn't exist yet. The past is already gone. It's a fallacy to live from this place. The only place where reality exists is right here, right now. Right? Even the words I've just said, they're gone now. It's over. But we like to live in this place, right? And we recreate the past over and over and over again. So at some point, you're no longer the victim. You're your own abuser.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Yeah. That's so true.
My brother asked me this question. He's like a very like philosophical or just like likes facts. And we were on a hike and it was probably a year and a half ago when I was very much so in the victim mindset, which I can get into, I guess. But at the time he asked me, because he had read it somewhere, what percentage of your life do you think you spend thinking about the past, present, future? Like split it. There's 100% of your mind space. What's the percentage? And at the time of like being in the very victim mindset, I was like 90% past. And I was like maybe 5% present, 5 future. Now I think I've kind of an opposite issue where like 0 past, maybe 5% past because I'll like address things that apply to now. But I live so much in the future and I'm really working on trying to like retract that and be more present. But I think I overcompensated because I was so much in the past and so much of like living in that victim world and like, oh, all of this happened to me that I became, okay, this is what I want to change and like constantly projecting into the future. And now I'm learning to like find that middle ground in the present. And that's hard for me.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about a very normal, energy of change, right? So there's this pendulum swing of change.
I was just thinking, I was like,
yes, there's a pendulum, right?
I went one extreme to the other.
Right. And the reason that we do that is because we need contrast to know. We need experience contrast in our experiences so we understand the difference between things. So the simplest way to think about contrast is imagine there's no nighttime. Do you understand what day is? Do you understand what light is? Can you really get and know that experience if you don't know nighttime? No, not really. You have to experience things to really know them. It's like air. You don't know what it is to not breathe until you can't fucking breathe. But most of us don't go through an experience of losing our breath at all during the day, right? So this contrast is really important. So when you've been spending so much time in the past, by spending time in the future, right? This is all theoretical because you're only in the present.
But, My mindset now is very future focused.
Yes. You now have contrast of the differences between the two. And now you can kind of swing back to what center point is for Kendall, right? And I think if we spend, 95% present, 5% future, that's probably ideal. We really don't need to spend time in the past because, as I'm sure you're learning, as you're moving towards your future, the shit from the past that was in the way, it'll come up naturally. We don't have to look behind us. It will just show up.
We don't have to do it for it to come up.
I feel like there's no longer a reason to overthink on the past or dwell on it because I'm like you said, it's in the passing. Like, okay, that happened. Moving on now.
What's crazy to me is that, like, once I start thinking about how much I am thinking about the past, I would say when you're thinking about the past, it's usually depression. It's like that. When you're thinking too much in the future, it's a lot of anxiety.
Yes.
So when I was the lowest that I've ever felt,
analogy.
I was depressed because I was thinking so bad in the past. Oh, why did you do that? You should have done this. Like when I was working with Liv, also side note, if anyone doesn't know, I worked with Liv for 2 years for mindset coaching. So she's a lot of the reason why I am the person that I am today. So
Thanks,
I don't think people know that I spent like
didn't know
2
that
years
until recently.
working on my mental health with Liv, and people are like, how did you be like this? I'm like, I needed a lot of help. But
Took a while to get here.
And so what I learned working with you is that if you're ever saying like you shoulda, coulda, woulda, like it's a hard sign that something is wrong here. And that's what I was doing. I was in the past saying, oh, I should have done this. What if I would have done this? And the fact is, we are wasting so much time because we literally can't fix it. There's nothing we can do about it. You can't undo what you ate the day before, whether you think that you can. Like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And we spend so much time in that area, like sulking. And it's just a little spiral. It's like, oh, why did I do that? Oh, I shouldn't have done that. I could have done this. And then you're like, yeah, I'm okay. No, why did I do that? And it's just over and over. And we can't even change that. And that's the wild thing to me. It's like, if we can't change it, why are we thinking about it? Why do we do that?
Yeah, I mean, because
human nature.
Yeah, we victimized ourselves. That's why. Well, I love that you mentioned that because, like, when we talk about the victim mindset, we also want to talk about, like, what's the antithesis of the victim mindset? If we're not in a victim mindset, what mindset are we in? And if we're not in victim, we're in creator, right? We're in creator. We are the cause of our life. We are the powerful creator of our experience. And when we look at it from that perspective, you can start to understand really your most valuable asset isn't time. Time is valuable, but it's also not real. Your most valuable asset's your attention. Where are you putting your energy? Because wherever your energy is going, that's what you're manifesting. So if you're spending all of your attention in the past, in the coulda, shoulda, wouldas, you're continuing to manifest that experience over and over and over again. And there's a beauty in this because you are not letting yourself get away with not completing an experience. You can't bypass anything. You don't get to just skip over it. The only way out is through, right? We know this. What you resist will persist, right? And resistance is just a form of attention. So this is actually what inspired me to mention to you the title of the podcast. If we say break free from the victim mindset, our energy's still going on victim mindset.
Yes.
And the body doesn't know the fucking difference. When it hears victim mindset, it's vibrating at victim mindset. If we shift that from victim, break free. We don't need to break free of shit. We need to make a choice. Okay, how do we step into creator's mindset? We can say what one of my mentors says, and you've experienced this from him because you did the Journey to Nobody training a couple weekends ago. Shane Scott says, there's nothing more powerful than you. Put your attention on that shit. There's nothing more powerful than you. Every morning you look yourself in the eyes. There's nothing more powerful than me. I choose to create what today? I choose to be this. I'm making choices today about who I'm going to be and what I'm going to create. And when I do that, I can trust that anything in my way, any of my walls that came from the past, they're just going to show up. I don't have to find them. They'll show themselves to me. I'll feel self-judgment. I'll feel alone. I'll feel disconnect. I'll feel those things. And then I have a choice. Am I going to greet that with love? Am I going to greet that with fear? Again, I'm saying all these things as if they're very simple because they
Right.
are, and they are not easy. I don't want to take away the pain or the hurt or bypass the fact that past experiences can be extremely powerful and they can transform and completely change your life, especially in a space where you have actually been victimized. It is possible for your free will to be
100%.
stomped on, right? Like sexual assault's a common way to say that, or anything that happened to you in your childhood where the power dynamic was such that you really didn't have much of what felt like a creator's choice.
Mm-hmm.
But as my brother Sonny likes to say, at what point do you become responsible?
Exactly.
At what point did you go from being victim to being your own abuser? Right? And that's only for you to say. You're the only one who gets to say, well, I've been sitting in my grief around this for so long, I'm starting to torture myself instead of process it.
Yeah, instead of someone else torturing me and inflicting the pain on me, now I'm doing it to myself because this is what I think that I deserve.
Yeah.
So like on the topic of victim versus creator, we were saying that a lot of times you don't know you're in it. So what would you say are some symptoms? Let's start with of being in the victim mindset and then move on to some symptoms of maybe you realize that you're actually in the creator mindset.
Yeah, I think the easiest thing to look at, and this is also comes from my mentor Shane, is what are your results? What does your life look like objectively on a piece of paper? Are you enjoying your experience? Do you like how you feel? No? Okay, you're probably in some victim.
That's a big sign.
Yeah, if you're not enjoying the experience. Now, the tricky thing here is some of us actually do enjoy suffering and we won't admit it. That was something I had to come to is, oh, there's a part of me that likes misery a little bit. And I had to look at that and ask myself why. And there were quite a few reasons, but I found some that weren't wholly healthy, right? And it was this, I have an identity attachment to suffering, right? And it came from this image of strong, independent woman. So I know you two are about to identify with this, right? Well, if I'm a strong, independent woman, how do I know I'm a strong, independent woman? Well, things are hard. And if things are hard, then I'm working hard. And if I'm working hard, then I'm strong.
Okay.
Maybe, sometimes. Sometimes that can be the case, but what are the other possibilities? And am I closing myself off to possibilities of it being easy because I need it to be hard so I feel like I'm a strong, independent woman? Yeah, maybe I should look at that because I don't enjoy my experience here, especially in partnership with men. That is a place where I was taking up too much space and I wasn't receiving anything. I wouldn't let the man show up for me in any kind of way because that would break the image of me being a strong, independent
literally
woman.
just having this conversation with someone.
Yeah.
'Cause
Kendall's
I'm
over
that
there
same
like-
way. I was like, yes. I was having a conversation with someone and they were like, we were just talking about being like giver versus receiver. And I was like, I don't even give people the opportunity to be givers towards me.
I've seen it happen in
Yeah.
Kendall's life. I've literally seen it happen. It's
Oh,
crazy.
no.
Like she was just standing there and one of her persons was just saying, like literally looking at her and just literally like in awe over how beautiful she was. And like Gabby and I were too. We were like, oh, she's like this like Greek. I always like look at Kendall like she's a Greek sculpture because of how
You're
her
so
bone
sweet.
structure is created. And we're looking at her like this and you can see her like reject. Like
Yeah.
she's like, no, look
I
at
like
somebody
turned to the
else.
guy that was with me and I was like, why are you looking at me?
She legit was like,
Because
why are you staring at me?
In my head, I was like, I don't know. That comes to the like self-inflicted pain and suffering where I was like, oh, I bet he's noticing X, Y, and Z about me, which were all negatives. And like, I never think someone's looking at me and seeing like a positive. Yeah.
It was wild.
Well, and then from that place, you have to ask yourself, why do I choose that experience? How is
Yeah.
this serving me? That's another thing that people like when they're in their shit, right? And I'm coaching them, and I'm like, what are you getting out of this? And they're like, nothing. And I'm like, you're doing it though.
Yeah.
We do what we
You
want.
must be getting something
We're doing
if you're
what-
Yeah.
if you're there, and that's I think when we can go back to like the people enjoy suffering. You must be getting something after it because you're kind of still there. So.
Yeah, you keep choosing this. So don't pretend like you don't like it on some level. There's some part of you that's really enjoying the fuck out of this suffering. And what part of that is you? And is it a part you want to be in alignment with anymore? But that requires you to take ownership, right? That requires you to take responsibility for the fact that you are choosing this. You are choosing to suffer in the face of this experience. You're choosing to reject love.
Yeah.
Why are you doing that? What do you get out of that? How does that make you feel? And why do you like that feeling? You know? And almost always it's backing up some story you have about yourself. And we get scared of change, right? We're scared of uncertainty. Our animal brains at their very basic level are just concerned with living or dying, and they don't really care about your experience. They don't care if you're thriving. They don't care if you like it. It just cares that you're alive. So if we can go in and go, maybe receiving compliments won't kill me. Maybe that might actually feel good. Maybe that might reinforce my strength. maybe what I'm really terrified is my greatness. I'm terrified that that's true. Am I that beautiful? Fuck. What do I do with that? What does that change? How do I handle that? Because I'm pretty sure I've lived my whole life as an ugly duckling. And if I'm a swan, well, fuck, that changes everything.
And
God damn it.
I love it.
It does. It changes
It
things.
does.
And that's really what we're scared of. We're always just scared of our greatness because what exists on the other side of all these walls is just you. That's it. You're just coming back home to you. Oh no. Terrifying.
It's scary because we've spent so much of our lives almost like throwing dirt on top of it, like covering it up, like, yeah, let's cover that shit up. Let's let no one else see that. Cool. And then I feel like this process is just like digging through to find you, the center of you, to come back home. And I love that you were talking about that, what was it? Symptom. The symptom of just like, are you liking your experience? So what else can people use as like a trigger or like an alarm to be like, I'm in victim? Because it seems like it's just very sneaky.
It is.
And then once we think that we've unsneaked ourselves, we find another way to uncover it.
Yes. Well, there's more and more layers, right? Because we started piling this shit on from the time we were babies. You know, we pick up stuff externally from 0 to 7. From 0 to 7, our synapses are just firing. We have awareness of things that are outside of our immediate focus. Like we're always taking in stimulus. So there is a lot we get from our environment that we just adopt.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of layers to uncover. Like I said, it's not easy work. It's very important. It's very rewarding. It's not easy, right? There's a lot of layers. And so I know for me, and you named a beautiful loop that I coach a lot of people through because it's one I have a lot of experience with, and it's depression, anxiety loop, right? Those two things feed each other. They're soul-sucking sisters. So if you are someone who consistently experiences an anxiety and depression experience, there's a lot of victim story, right? There's a lot of limiting beliefs in there. There are a lot of ways in which you have attached a fear to a belief about yourself, and you're producing the depression. And I do want to address something because some people will get on the defense of, well, it's chemical. It's chemical. Maybe. I don't want to say it's not. Maybe. And also, you are the most powerful thing. There's nothing more powerful than you. So what if you energetically are creating a frequency that's producing these chemicals? What if your body's just responding to what you've told it? What if you've made a choice inside yourself that you are someone who's depressed, and now your brain is responding to that and creating your reality?
Yeah. I mean, your identity is I'm a person who's depressed. Just like for me, for a long time, I'm a person who struggles with binge eating. And if I keep with that identity, I'm going to continue to favor that identity. I'm a person that struggles with binging. I'm a person that's depressed. I'm going to continue to be that person because it's my identity. And even though it sucks, I'm attached to it.
Yes. So like now when I am because I used to have really like terrible panic attacks and all these things, right? And I used to have really low lows and depression, and I would binge eat in my depression and all of these things. And so now when I'm in what I call a down regulation, it's a low, right? I am vibrating lower. I see it as an invitation to rest and to put extra attention and self-care on myself. I see it as permission to focus on live. I'm like, ooh, I may have overexerted myself. I've expended a lot of energy giving. Now's my time to receive. And I can receive from myself in whatever ways I choose. And then I can also choose to open myself up and not isolate when I feel depressed, and allow other people to pour into me and to say, hey, I'm feeling a little low today. I'm on the struggle bus a little bit. There's a lot of self-judgment in me. Can I talk to you? Can I watch TV with you? Will you hug me? I can open up these possibilities, but before I wouldn't, right? Depression was something that was wrong with me, but it was also an important part of my identity.
Yeah.
I needed
Depression
to be
is
depressed.
hard.
Yeah.
I can get through it.
I feel like I was there for so long, and you want to self-isolate because I think like the whole I'm a strong independent woman mindset is I wanted to prove to myself that I could get out of it alone. And then I realized that talking to people only ever helped. Like I have this one friend who is the only person I've ever shared like absolutely everything with and has related to it instead of being like, oh, something's wrong with you. And that just like having that outlet and someone to talk to. And sometimes that is finding like a life coach or a therapist or someone who isn't in your immediate life to just speak with, until I was actually voicing it and hearing like, okay, you're not crazy. Let's work on this. That was the first time it was very eye-opening to me where I was like, okay, I can break out of this loop. Because before then I'd be too afraid to open up, or if I shared a little bit, people were like, ooh, okay, like I don't know what to do with that information. Because I also feel like they shouldn't be responsible for how I'm feeling either. And I was like pushing that onto them of like, you need to fix this, or like, you need to comfort me. And it's like, you find the right people, going back to like what we started with, like when you're around the right people and you can talk about these feelings and feel comforted and loved, like that's the people you need to be around more. The people that look at you like you're crazy, like maybe they're not meant to be there.
Sometimes it's also just with how people respond, I guess, to vulnerability or just sharing or just being a human in general. I think it's literally holding up a mirror to their face and it's like, ooh, no, I don't want, you can deal with that. I ain't fucking with that now. And I think that's what I notice is wild, is when maybe you'll start talking to people about these things and you're like, yeah, like trying to open up and share. It's just like, hey, it opens up, just like when you're like in fitness. It's like, I started working on my health and fitness and people start seeing you, like you have more energy, you're eating healthy, and maybe you get negative comments or people make fun of you. It's because you're holding up a mirror to them of what they know they eventually want or is a possibility, and then they don't want to do it or they think they can't.
That's even back to the like, instead of gaining motivation, gaining jealousy thing that we addressed earlier too. It's kind of like full circle, all of it really relates to each other.
For real.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You guys are hitting the nail on the head for sure. So it's very clear you guys have a lot of experience with your own victim mindset, right?
100%.
And you've done a lot of alchemy in the space. Yeah, I mean, whenever you are sharing a vulnerable part of yourself and somebody reacts in a way that feels unloving, that's a direct mirror of their own suffering and their capacity to hold that emotion within themselves. An experience I've had throughout my whole life that I used to victimize myself inside of was, I feel things intensely and deeply. And it's very easy for me to express those things, whether it's through the energy of it or through my words. And people don't like that. People are scared of the intensity of their emotions. People are convinced if they feel the depths of those low things, they'll die or something bad will happen or it means something. And I've just never felt that way. I've never been scared of my own feelings. But I started to take people's reaction and response to me personally. And I made it about my character. I made it about my person. And so I disallowed those things and I started to make those things wrong, right? And it became this reason that I was broken and I needed to fix myself. And so I swung the opposite way and I got very in my head and overly analytical about things. And I would cut off my emotions, and then that cut off my empathy for people, right? And then that made it easy for me to self-isolate, right?
Yeah.
And so now I'm in this place where I recognize, oh, that's my gift to the world. The discomfort I cause you by being comfortable with and expressing my own emotions is important for you. You need that discomfort. You need that tension to break through your own walls. And so now I see, oh, I get to offer people permission. And I hope I cause you discomfort. I hope I present you the choice to rise or run. And you can run, but you're going to keep running into this wall. So now I'm on a mission of creating a safe, comfortable space for people to choose to rise.
Oh, yeah. So it's not like you're pushing them to do anything. They kind of just want to do it anyways. And if we go back to the pendulum swinging again, I feel like you started, let's say, way over on the left, where I feel like you've described this as your too muchness sometimes, where people think like, wow, she's a lot. And you were over there, and then you swung completely to the right, where you're like, fine, that I'm going to cut off who Liv naturally is. I'm going to cut off Liv's power. And now you're swinging back to that middle where you're like, how can I be in my quote unquote too muchness, which is my favorite part about you, which I don't think it's too much. I think it's enough. It's just what we need. But then also being in that, like,
I feel like I resonate so much with that too.
100%.
I have a question. So for someone who is like listening and they are like, okay, I very much so am playing victim in a lot of roles in my life. What do you think, like, what do you do from there? How do you find someone to talk to, or how do you get out of that situation?
Yeah. So the first thing I always tell people, there are a few steps toward, creating consciousness. And the first one is just awareness, right? So if this isn't something you're horribly aware of, but you have a feeling, you're like, oh, this is resonating. I know I'm in this in some way, which everyone is.
Yeah.
Hint, hint.
Yeah.
If you're rejecting this, if you're like, this isn't me, this isn't my experience, you need to
might
look
be
at
the
that.
deepest
You
in
need
here.
to look at that, right? You're rejecting an aspect of human expression, and you are capable of and have all access to human expression. Even if this is something you're at peace with and you're not really creating, there's some shade of victimhood inside of you, right? So I always tell people to build awareness, and the easiest place it's been for me to build awareness is in my word choices with myself. How am I talking to myself, right? So one of the first places I started was with the word should. I was creating a lot of curriculum for these teams that I was working on. And so I was reading a lot of communication books, and one of them is Nonviolent Communication. And the author purports that the most violent word in our language is should, because should implies you don't have choice. right? So that is immediately putting you into a victim mind state. So I started paying attention to my shoulds. And I swung, again, pendulum swing. I started removing all shoulds and I replaced them with could. Should moved to could, because now it's a possibility, but it's not destiny. It's something I can choose. And then through that journey, I started to discern there are shoulds that are of service to me because it's the call of my soul. It's the call of my soul telling me, hey, this is in alignment. This should has a high vibration. And I could tell that because when I felt into it, I felt lifted up and I felt hope. And I'd feel a tinge of fear, but not the kind of fear that made me want to hide. It's the kind of fear that was like, ooh, this is big. Ooh, I could step into my power here.
Do you have an example of a negative should?
Yeah. So then there's the shoulds that make you feel low and me, right? And those are always that I should be different or my situation should be different, that something needs to change. So these are ego words, right? Change is an ego word. Improve, better. Anything that exists in a hierarchy or a binary tends to be egoic. Now, I don't want to make the ego a monster or a villain. And if your ego is using you and you're not using it, you do need to create some separation so you can see the difference, right? And this is where the awareness becomes really important. So the first thing I always recommend to people is pay attention to how you're talking to yourself, because you're your number one cheerleader.
Yes.
And are you the cheerleader that's saying, boo, you suck, you'll never make any points, you're a piece of shit, why are you even on the field? Or is it the kind that says, hey, we have no clue what's going to happen, but we have control over showing up as our best. And we can make a choice right now that I'm going to give it my all so that way I walk away with no regrets, or I can shrink and I can play out the same loop and continue to believe I'm a piece of shit, right? What cheerleader is in your head?
100%. And it's crazy that like how simple that first step is. Like this first simple is literally just being the thinker of your thoughts. And before I was the thinker of my thoughts, I can remember back to when I wasn't, and I was just walking around like a zombie, and any negative thought that came into my mind, any like, oh, you should be here, you should be doing this, you shouldn't have ate that, all of these different things, they would just pop up and they were me. They were just me. It was who I am. And now I'm like, I can question that. I can actually question that, because I used to think that I couldn't question the things that came into my brain. What came into my brain was just fact. That was it.
Yeah.
And this is simple thing of just, let me just listen to what I'm saying to myself.
Yes.
Let me just be a little bit aware of what's going on up there, because I'm in the driver's seat.
Yes, I love that. You're talking about two distinct eyes, right? You can't have a thought without an observer of your thoughts, right? So the I, the capital I, if you will, is the observer, right? It's the thinker of the thoughts. And then you have the egoic I, which is the actual thought itself, where that comes from. And I think that's a really important distinction, and it's not one you can understand until you experience it. So this starts with observation. That's the most important, most important piece. The more you can practice stepping into the observer role, the easier it becomes to choose between victim, persecutor, and creator. Yeah.
So now I feel like we've talked a lot about the victimhood. So how would you, if you were coaching someone, help them step into their creator? So people are listening to this, they're like, okay, they have that little tingle, they're feeling it while they're driving, they're on the Stairmaster, like, ooh, I think this is me. They start becoming a little bit more of an observer of what's going on, and now they want to step into creator. How do people do that?
Yeah, so the first place I start with my clients, the very first thing we do is we set an intention, right? And this intention is, what are the energies you want to embody? What are the energies you want to feel and experience every day so that you can create something? So we start with what you want to experience, what you want to feel in your body, and then we move into what do you want to create with those feelings, right? Okay. And so this is a choice that you can make for a period of time. You can make a new choice every day. It doesn't really matter, but the idea is you're making a choice. So when I talk about energies, we're thinking about frequencies of things, right? So like patience, that's a frequency. Presence is a frequency. Joy is a frequency. Fluidity, integrity, openness, like these things are energies that we can tap into. And we know we can tap into them because when we say them and we check in with our bodies, you can feel them in your body, right? And usually these words create a lot of space. And that's something that I do is I connect. Most people live in their heads, right? This is where their hell is. Hell is not some fiery inferno beneath our feet.
It's hell and
It's
heaven.
in your own mind. And you're already living in it. I promise you, you're already fucking living in hell, right? So you already know hell. Maybe you want to know heaven, right? So what does heaven feel like to you in your body? So I get people checked in and I'll say words for them, or, I'll be like, how about courage? How does that feel, right? Courage might not hit, but when I say bravery, someone's like, ooh, that's the one, bravery. I want to experience bravery. I want to feel brave in my body. So we'll pick, I try to stick to 3 to 4, no more than 4. Your brain starts to scramble after about 4 things. So we'll pick anywhere from, 2 to 4 energies that they want to stick into, right? So it's today I choose to be, or I choose to be, right? Joyful, patient, and present.
I remember 2 of mine, but I don't remember 3. I remember poised and patient, but I can't remember. Oh my God, I'm so dumb. The 3rd one was powerful. Duh.
So that seems
Got us here.
okay. So I want to point something out there. That's something that your subconscious does to you a lot, Julia.
Yes.
It pops out that you're powerful.
Yes.
That's just old shit. It's just hiding something from you.
I'm like, how could I literally forget what my whole brand is based on? And it's crazy. Like in this training that we went to, that Liv is actually one of the facilitators of this training that she's been talking about.
Which
the
I
journey
plan
to
on
nowhere.
going to.
I was about to say, Kendall, you would
I was
love
like,
it.
Kendall would.
She came back and was like, "You need to go." I was like, "I'm
of
good."
all my friends, I think you can handle it.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
like,
you'll be fabulous in it.
I just can't wait. But the thing that people were noticing in me the most was how powerful I was. And this is something that I know. Like, I know, but even me, I still needed them to tell me that. And the fact that they did that, I was like, wow, these people said I was powerful? I was like, whoa. And I'm like, wait, why am I shocked by that? I
Yeah.
already know that. Like, come on. But you're right. Like, sometimes just like I forget. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, well, I've just found, like, psychologically speaking, the aspect of yourself that is the most powerful is also the one that required the most shadow to tamp down. You needed more layers on your power to shut that shit up
100%.
than some of the other things. Like maybe being poised didn't require as much shadow to keep it behind the veil. So there's just more shadow for you to pull out of that strength. That's all it is.
Because if we're talking about it, I spent, let's call it, how old am I now? Let's say 22 years unpowered, depowering myself. This is why I like to talk about this topic so much. 22 years of depowering myself. So let's just say 3 years I've been stepping into my power. That's still 22 years of conditioning that I need to work through. So of course I'm going to forget it. Just like I feel like our little shadows, they'll still always pop up here and there. They'll just start to pop up less frequently.
Yeah.
The more work we do.
So my friend, our friend, Melly Wolf, Dr. Melly Wolf, she's fucking amazing. She has a beautiful tattoo on her arm that says, "Fear is my compass." And I love that because it's a reminder that the thing you're afraid of, the thing that you forget, your shadow, that's your teacher. Walk in that direction. That's where the light needs to shine. Don't run away from it. It's going to stay dark. Turn the goddamn light on. Flip the switch.
100%. I like to think of it as like a little flashlight. I think I was telling Zach this the other day. It's that like when there's something that I need to work on, say it's that I'm depowering myself or whatever it might be, I was shining like a little flashlight on it. And then things that I need to work on a little bit more, I'm like, I'm going to get one of those big football lights where I like those big stadium lights and just shine a giant light on it, blast me with it.
Yeah. And honestly, the willingness to look at that part of yourself usually reduces the amount of power it has instantly.
100%.
And then once you're willing to speak it out loud, then it loses a whole lot of power, right? Because you make it so much bigger than you in your head, and it's just not bigger than you. Nothing's bigger than you, man. Nothing.
Nothing's more powerful than you.
Nothing's more powerful than you. Yeah, so we start with those intentions and we feel into the frequency that connects with that person in their body, right? And then we move into, and this template actually comes from, so for people who don't know, Zach and I have a business together. I'm his business partner.
Yes,
So
Zach is my boyfriend.
I didn't even know that. So
Yeah. So in our business, we do consciousness coaching. And so what we have our clients do is they say, today I'm choosing to be, and they pick their frequencies. Right. And this is what I just said. We set that for the container. So I know what direction they're going. They know what direction they're going. And then it's what I'm creating is, right? So we immediately putting ourselves in that creator mindset. I'm responsible for vibrating at these frequencies so I can create. And what you're creating is whatever you choose it to be. I usually like to create more high vibe frequencies myself. So I might say, today I choose to be patient, present, and honest. What I'm creating is unity and unconditional love. Yeah, so that's where I tell people to start. I mean, the first thing we do is we make choices. That's all creators' consciousness is. Choice. Free will choice. You were put on this planet to make free will choices. So start making conscious choices. You're going to shift into creator mindset.
So basically, you can choose to not be a victim of your experience.
Yes. Now, I don't want to bypass anything. So when you make these new choices may be in such deep opposition to your previous choices that there's a lot of mess, right? And then that is where people can get lost and confused. And this is where I really think leaning on support, community support, reaching out and getting a coach like me, going to the Journey to Nobody, finding these places where other people are alchemizing these things becomes extremely important, because it's so easy to get lost back in your quagmire and slip out, because you have to create a whole new neural pathway. So I can explain all these concepts to people and they can get it in their mind, but their subconscious mapping is still vibrating at this lower frequency. Their body still doesn't trust this new thing.
Yes.
So you can't bypass these things. And that's been a huge issue in the spiritual community for quite a long time, long before I was even born. This idea that we just need to ascend and we're just going to bypass being human and we're going to leave the body behind.
Yeah.
That's a fallacy. That's another lie of the ego. That's another not stepping into your power. Your body is a part of you. All of it's a part of you. Your ego is part of you. Your body's a part of you. All these things are you. So to deny or fragment off those things and try to bypass them is the same victim mindset. And then you've convinced yourself that you're some pious, like self-righteous, spiritual guru, or, because you read tarot, embedding in your positive vibes only, that you're not having a human experience. So I just also want to note to people, there is this grounded element that pain brings you back to your roots.
100%.
It provides a really important anchor to humble you. And humility is something that people get confused, right? We think humility in our bodies is like you're lower than dirt, right? We use humility in a hierarchy. Mm-hmm. That isn't what humility is. Humility is you are the dirt. You're not as low as dirt. You are the dirt. And there's a difference there. Mm-hmm. If you can see yourself in the low vibration, in the shadow, you've just empowered yourself, because now you can make a choice. Mm-hmm. Once I was willing to admit, I experience a lot of shame around my sexuality. I don't feel comfortable or safe here. I feel all of these ways. Once I was willing to look at that and see myself in it and see, oh, Liv needs love here. Mm-hmm. Oh, Liv feels lonely here. Oh, if I just give her love here, she'll be fine. She'll be good. That dirt is me. I'm the dirt. Mm-hmm. Fuck. Mm-hmm. Stop bypassing it. Don't make her wrong for it. Don't cover her up. Let her out. All of this stuff is it's really just allowing yourself to be fully expressed. That's like the simplest way. A fully expressed human is a healed human. Mm-hmm. That's a creator.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
Everyone's listening and being like, oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I just keep sitting here nodding this
I'm
whole
like,
podcast.
pull over.
I'm like, yes.
Write it down.
Okay, relate to that.
So now, wrapping things up just a little bit, if you were to leave the listeners with anything, what would you leave them with?
It's the same thing that Shane says that I'm just going to keep repeating. You are the most powerful thing. There's nothing more powerful than you.
It's
like our podcast motto.
Dude, I know. I'm like, should we change the podcast?
Yeah,
I really want to change the podcast name now. It's so good. It's true. Now I want to ask one more thing of you too, before we kind of go into like where people can find you, because I know people are going to listen to this and be like, where the hell can I get more of Liv?
I want more of Liv after this.
I always want more of Liv. But what was the moment in your life that you truly realized, like, wow, there is nothing more powerful than me? I know this is hard.
No. I have a few key moments, and they've always come through my willingness to see myself from somebody else's perspective and the humility to be the villain. Mm. I'm willing to be wrong. Most people need to be right. They need to be fucking right. I don't. And I had this moment where and this is so beautiful, I freed myself in this way and I didn't even see it coming. I did a 2-hour meditation. This is like literally the last day of my marriage. And I put myself in my husband's shoes. And I wasn't listening to him, right? I wasn't hearing what he was saying behind his words. And I started to really okay, what's it like to be Jesse and see Liv? Mm-hmm. And I started to remember the things he was saying to me. And he kept telling me he liked his life the way it was. And he kept telling me that the way that I was approaching him was making him feel like there was something wrong with him for what he wanted. Because in my mind, I didn't even have a space for the possibility that someone would want to be living in a traditional white picket fence life.
Yes.
Right? And I made him wrong for it without realizing that's what I was doing. Because it's not what Liv wanted. It's not what I wanted. Duh. Why would you want to stay here? Why wouldn't you want to do this, do that, do this, do that? And so I just kept seeing his resistance as his unconscious self. And when I really put myself in his shoes and I chose to believe him and I chose to see him as the creator and I chose to see myself as the villain, there was so much power in that, and my willingness to see I bullied this man. I stepped on him. I made him feel small. I devalued his values on a very regular basis, not on purpose. No part of me was consciously trying to hurt this person, even a little bit.
You were like, I want to help you level up. Like, let's level up. But sometimes people don't want to level up, and that's okay.
It's not our job to do that for them.
Well, and even to say, what does leveling up even mean? And what does leveling up look like for each individual? Because I also have a belief there are as many pathways to success as there are humans on this planet.
100%.
We can't all follow the same template, and we can take pieces of other people's templates and try them on and see how they fit, but we all have a very unique path.
Yes.
And I was here trying to force my path on him. And when I saw that, and I saw the ways in which I was not showing up with empathy, I was not showing up with unconditional love, I was giving my love in a very conditional way, I started to see, oh, Liv, you created this. You created this. This experience that you're having, this disconnect you have with him, you made this. And when I saw that, you know, he came home and I shared it with him and I was feeling really great about it. And his response was so negative. It was in such contrast to what I came to him with unconditional love, finally for the first time. And his response was to tell me it was too late. It didn't fucking matter. It was really negative. And he pretty much said, this isn't going to work. Now, beautiful moment, because I needed to leave. We needed to not be together. I freed myself by choosing to see myself all the way and choosing to hold space for the parts of me that maybe weren't so beautiful and maybe weren't so fucking perfect.
That's exactly how my last relationship ended. And that was a really powerful experience, because in the moment I was like, I did the thing. I did the right thing. He was the one that was bad. And the most powerful experience was realizing I think I told you, I had a dream about him one night. I woke up, I told Zach, I said, I don't know why. Something tells me I need to go see my ex-boyfriend. And my Zach, being the incredible human he was, he's like, I get it. I know why you need to do that. There's something you need to detach. And I told him, I said, I'm sorry. Like, I'm really sorry. I was trying to change you into a person that I wanted you to be, and you were never going to be that. That's not right of me to say success looks like being a fitness influencer who has a podcast. Success can literally be whatever the fuck you want it to be. It could be the stay-at-home mom. It can be the person working to 9 to 5. It could be the freaking president of the United States. It could be a podcaster, a YouTuber. It doesn't matter. Success looks like different. And I was telling him that it needed to look a certain way. And I was like, I'm sorry, that wasn't right.
Yep. And I had a moment like that too with my previous partner, who you know, Kyle. I had a very similar experience, you know. And this happened a lot quicker. I got to it a lot faster. But within a month of our breakup, I got to the point where I had grieved enough of my own side of it that I could look at it from his perspective and see Liv through Kyle's eyes. And I was like, oh man, I broke this man's heart. I fucking broke this man's heart. And I didn't realize it because I was in so much pain. And I arrogance. Arrogance is the centering of oneself, y'all. And the victim does that better than fucking anybody else. The victim centers itself and it feels self-righteous and it's a martyr. It's so gross. It's so fucking gross. So I felt it on me and I was like, ugh. Okay, I broke this man's heart and I need to take responsibility for that. Regardless of him taking responsibility for anything he's done, you know, on his end, which he hasn't, and that's okay. That's okay.
But you feel powerful because you've done that.
I'm staying in my integrity. I'm doing what I need to do for Liv, to care for Liv, because she's who I am responsible for first and foremost. And I think that we've brought up something that is a really good way to wrap up the, like, how do you begin to shift from this victim to the creator? Something that you said in your breakup story, I can't remember exactly what it was, made me think of this. But sometimes people don't know, like when they're like, well, I don't know what I want to vibrate at and I don't know what I want to create. I have no clue. I'm so lost. What if, and this is my mentor, Nisha Moodley. Oh, what a beautiful fucking human. She offered this to me. And I remember when she said it to me, I had so much disbelief in my body. But now that I'm here and I honored following that path and letting that be a possibility, I'm like, this is the answer for everyone. What if you only do what excites you? What if what brings you joy is exactly the path to take? What if all the things that you think are maybe useless or a hobby or won't bring you money or whatever are exactly the things that are your path to abundance? What if that's where all your power lies? and you're purposefully running away from it and devaluing it because you're more comfortable in your victim, because you're more comfortable in your disempowerment.
I have a tattoo down my spine that says "Seek what sets your soul on fire."
That's it. That's the one.
That's
same,
the one.
Like same exact premise of like just seek things that excite you, that make you happy. That could be as small as like I take myself on coffee dates all the time. I like working at coffee shops.
Love that.
And that little activity of doing that and like choosing like I wake up and I'm like, damn, I don't have a lot on my schedule today. And like typical Kendall would be like, I have too much free time and I would fall into depression and whatever. And instead I'll be like, oh, you know, I can take myself on a little coffee date today. And I'll go and I'll post up at like a Starbucks. And that is like the highlight of my day. Just those little things of like little excitement. Like recently I've been traveling more and that's something I never did in the past. And I'm like, wow, I love going places and just like meeting people and like being in new cities. And like I'm going to Chicago with my mom this week and I'm super excited. Like those little activities and just like setting out little things every day that like set my soul on fire and make me excited to be alive and like look forward to things that like changed everything for me.
Oh my gosh.
That's why I got that tattoo.
That's so beautiful. I love that. Do what sets your soul on fire. That's an easy way to remember what I just said. And maybe to end, I'd like to create a vision. This is how I see the world, because I've thought a lot. How do we save the world? And it's easy to go, this policy, that policy, we need to, blah, blah. Those are weeds. Those are fucking weeds. That's the goddamn matrix. We made it up. We can uncreate it, right? That's stupid. What can we do on our own level? What can I do every fucking day? Now, I want you to imagine that the most important thing you were tasked here on earth was to take excellent care of yourself.
Ooh.
What if that's the most important thing you were ever supposed to do, because you're the only person who can be you? The only thing no one else can do for you on this fucking planet is be you. So what if we save the world by everyone shifting out of this victim bullshit and shifting into this empowered, joyful shit?
Mm-hmm.
What if every single person on the planet was overflowing with their own fucking love? What happens then? Do we have war? Do we have rape? Do we have all of these terrible things in the world that are scary? Probably not. So what if each individual person was taking care of themselves in this way and choosing to create something beautiful? We've solved every single fucking problem on the planet, man.
Literally.
So the next time you tell yourself it's selfish to take yourself on a coffee date or to spend some money on training like Journey to Nobody or coaching or buying healthy organic foods to fill your body with good, high vibrational shit.
And also, it's like, when you say save the world, it's like, ooh, that's so scary. You think that you need to go around and like save everybody.
No.
You just gotta
But
save
literally
yourself.
just us doing this podcast, being here right now. Like, I am taking care of myself right now by doing this podcast
Yeah.
because this sets my soul on fire.
Yes, same.
Yeah.
Same.
I feel-
and if you're just taking accountability for yourself, you can save the world. What?
That's what I'm saying. If every single person took excellent care of themselves, no one would have to save anybody else. There would be no one to save because everybody's already fucking saved, because nobody's goddamn broken and there's nothing more powerful than you.
Live, just save the world
Amen.
in one sentence.
Thanks for your help with it, guys. Thank you for your help. Thank you for carrying your
it's
weight so
such-
I don't have to.
Yes. Now, to end the podcast, where can people find you?
I haven't super been active on Instagram lately, but that's my most used platform, and it's at Live Wickedly.
Okay.
My website is livewickedly.com.
Cool.
I think those are the two simplest things to go
Yes.
with.
I'll have them down in the description below, and I'm also going to have the journey to nowhere.
Nobody. Yeah.
To nowhere. It's somewhere, all right. I've done it. I recommend it more.
I plan on doing it. So.
Kendall plans on doing it. I recommend doing it literally more than anything on this world.
Yep.
Words can't even describe it. And once you go and do it, you'll know why. I'll have it linked in the description below. There's one here in Austin.
I was going to say, is it only in Austin or?
No, right now we have one in Austin and one in Utah. The next one is in Austin. It's, I believe it's November 14th to the 17th.
Yes.
And then the one in December, I don't have the exact dates for that one yet, but that one's actually going to be in Utah at a beautiful ranch called Homestead Ranch. That's where I did my training. It was fucking
it's
gorgeous.
so gorgeous. I haven't been to that location, and it's incredible. But there will be a link down below, and you'll be at both of those as well.
I'll definitely be at the one in Austin.
Okay.
I'm not totally sure about the Utah one,
Okay.
but definitely the one in Austin.
Okay, but guys, if you want to meet Liv, she's going to be there. So
I'd love to see you.
Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you
This
for
is
having me.
genuinely my favorite podcast.
Yes.
Oh, thanks, Kendall.
I knew it.
I feel like I just learned a ton.
Yes.
Yeah.
I helped you remember what you already know.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I resonated with a lot, but like, I don't know. It was nice to just like sit here and listen and be like, just relate to
It is
everything
nice
you're
to just
saying.
sit here and like just learn from new people. And that's
Yeah.
what I'm enjoying about getting ready to have more podcasts or we have guests is that like we only know what we know, and bringing on other people to have different perspective. They have different life experience. Like next week we have Katie coming on who did the retreat with me.
Katie's great.
And I'm super excited about that. So I hope you guys are excited too. Please follow Liv. Please go to the Journey to Nobody. Why am I forgetting it? Nobody? Journey to Nobody.
You found your power there. It's blocking it out.
Yeah, I'm just like, meh. But thank you all so much for being here. And as always, we love you all so much. And you are more powerful than you think. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Know Your Power podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an episode. And if you believe you deserve it, make sure to leave a review and rate the show. Love you. Bye.